this place of sweet quiet. It's hard to call it resting because that's all that had ever happened. And there was a being witnessing it. I mean, the Aboriginal people of Australia, this is the spirit of dreaming, the being of consciousness, that first witness of all that was, all that is. For a long time it was like this, just this gentle curiosity with the nothing, everything that was. And who knows how long that lasted. We certainly couldn't measure it with any of the devices we use. No calendar or stopwatch would run long enough for how long this pace of time lasted. Was there even time yet? I don't know. Was there even space yet? I don't know. There was just nothingness and a consciousness feeling it, being in it. Until from that nothing, maybe from the witnessing itself, a dreaming began. First dreaming was a dreaming of fire. The heat and the light of it growing into a glow. Began to grow. Swirling and twisting through the space, lighting up everything with glowing gaseous heat. And in the midst of the flames picking up their speed, they began to dance. And then the dreamer realized that there was another element involved. And suddenly there was a dance of flame and wind. Fire and wind chasing each other around. And the dreamer liked the dream, and so the dreaming continued. Nothing but fire and air chasing each other around for ages. Finally, it seemed an age since when there were tiny little dots that would fly through the air and pierce the flame, making little black holes, little clouds of steam chasing through them. It began to rain into the fire and the wind. Biggest storm that had ever been thus far was one of wind and rain and fire. It was beautiful. It was strange. It was all-encompassing, and if the dreamer could have smiled, if the dreamer had had lips, it would have smiled. All we know is that the dreamer liked the dream, and so the dreaming continued. And the dream took on more elements because all that steam and fire and wind wanted to take a more solid form. And so before too long, there was fire and wind and rain, and then there was ground, black and still and rocky and cold underneath. And they were all dancing together. And the dreamer liked the dreaming, and so it continued. But after a while, After all of this swirling elementalness, the dreamer started to get tired, wondering where the finish line was, wondering if there was a chair to sit down in somewhere in the cosmos, wondering if somebody else could take over this job. Not wanting the dreaming to stop, the dreamer started getting creative and sending creatures, sending life into the dream, so that these creature beings could take over the dreaming, and it could continue. The first creature that the dreaming was passed to, it was deep in the dark waters, down in the stillness where the pressure of the water holds like an almost suffocating hug unless you're big enough like this creature is. Long fins and smooth skin, wide open mouth that eats tiny food, and a beautiful song, and a blowhole at the top of its head. Who are we talking about? Who got the dreaming first? Whale, yes. Was given the dreaming first. Can we just evoke some whale here? Invoke. And that was the place where the dreaming began. Appropriate, nice and still and quiet, cradled in the heart of the water. So there was Whale in that beautiful stillness, and he began to dream. Things he dreamed about he didn't understand. He wasn't dreaming just of the water that was still and quiet like he liked. He was beginning to dream of the water that crashes in big heaving tumbles, churning with foam and froth onto the shore, and bright sand and waves and shellfish and tides. No, that's not the dream the whale wanted. He would rather stay in the deep darkness and keep dreaming of the stillness. And so the dreaming was passed on. The whale took it and passed it like a note in class to a creature living on the edge where the water meets the rest of the dry world. And it was taken by a creature that has a beautiful kaleidoscopic shell and flippers and a dignified hook, beak, and beautiful, cute, beady eyes. Who are we talking about? Yes, beautiful sea turtle took that dreaming up, and there she was, flapping on the sand with the water splashing across her back. And she took the dreaming, and she began to dream. Oh no, but the dreaming got strange to her too, because she wasn't dreaming of wet sand tumbling with the water like she liked it here. She was dreaming of dry sand, and hot sun, and warm rocks, and desert quiet stillness, and clouds passing overhead that left her cold blood shivering. She didn't like that. She wanted to stay where she was, where the waves were cresting and the sand was littering the back of her shell so sweetly, and she could bury her eggs in the sand. No, that was the dreaming she wanted, so she passed the dreaming on like a football, like a basketball, like a note in class, to that creature that sits dignified with a forked tongue that smells the air, and a long tail on beautiful delicate claws, and gorgeous scaly skin. Who are we talking about?
Lizard.
The dreaming was past the lizard, and there he sat, enjoying the sun, quietly, quickly contemplating his surroundings. And he closed his little eyes and smelled the air with his tongue, and got even quieter than a lizard in the desert usually gets, because he'd just been handed something very important. With the spirit of dreaming inside of him, the lizard began to dream. But there in the desert quiet, lizard was terrified of the dream that was coming, because the dream was of windy sky, high, high above the ground, and castle clouds that were all around, and riding huge air currents. Oh, that's terrifying. No, thank you very much, said the lizard, passing the dreaming on like a football, like a note in class, up high into the heavens, almost like the scales sprouted, growing feathers and long, sharp claws and a beautiful hooked beak. And there, riding the air currents, those beautiful thermals high above the ground, circling and circling and circling, and crying out piercingly, who caught the dreaming next? Eagle caught the dreaming next. Another great place to dream, there catching all of that wind, every now and then flapping her beautiful actually a little bored by it and a little also terrified, because she wasn't dreaming of the bright day that she loved, that place where she could see with beautiful sharp vision down to the ground those tiny little scurrying ones that she was hunting for lunch. That's where she wanted to be. But here in this dreaming, she was seeing huge dark night skies. And this was the weird thing. Suddenly the sky wasn't up like it's supposed to be. In her dream, the sky was down. What? That's just wrong. And she looked up and she saw the ground, and it was tethered to the sky by a tree, and she was somehow on the tree, clinging by a wormy tail. No, this is totally wrong. I do not want to be in this dream, says Eagle. And so, like a football, like a basketball, like a note in class, she passed the consciousness, the spirit of dreaming, onto that creature who wraps his wormy tail around a branch at night. And his mate carries all of her children on her back. Who are we talking about? Possum. Yes, passed the dreaming on to Possum. And there he hung by his tail, contentedly sniffing the air. Can you imagine if we could still pass our dreams on to each other? Maybe we can. This was all they could do, was dream where they were and pass them on. And so Possum took the dreaming into himself, and he looked down into the beautiful sky, and he began to dream. But the dream he was dreaming he didn't like, because it was a wide open vast prairie with grasses blowing hither and yon. And as the creature that was doing this dreaming, he was hopping really far and fast, and there was just no rest for it. Way too much work. And so, like a football, like a note in class, Possum passed the dreaming on to this creature with long legs and a big, long tail, who carries her children in a pouch at the front. Who are we talking about? Yes, indeed. The dreaming was passed on to Kangaroo, and she stood with her beautiful claws held just so and proper. If she was a human, she'd be carrying a purse, I think. Just so. She looked out over that beautiful prairie expanse in the midst of the bright day, and she began to dream. But the dream she dreamed, and frankly I think of all of the non-human creatures, Kangaroo had the most terrifying dreams. I mean, it's a lot to be a creature who's not used to the night sky, or not used to everything being upside down, or not liking the waves and the sand, or not liking flying through the air. But Kangaroo, I think, might have been traumatized for life because of the dreaming she was given, because she dreamed of human language and music and violence and cooking your food over a fire. What? And building structures out of brick and what? No. Whoa. So like a very hot potato, like a very incriminating note in class, Kangaroo passed the spirit of dreaming onto that other two-legged, the one without the tail, the one without the fur. That one that all the other animals had been watching for a while, wondering what they were getting up to. The ones that had just most recently found fire and begun dancing around it and cooking their food around it. And this one stood up, arched her back, stretched out her hands, scratched her face, yawned. Can you yawn with me for a second? And she smiled to herself, and she began to dream. And those same things that terrified Kangaroo, languages that her children's children speak. Instruments made out of simple things like bones, and more intricate, made out of wood and string and animal skins that would make incredible sounds that leave your body blossoming into dancing. Amazing structures being built out of ore taken from the ground, and glass, and violence and sadness, and unthinkable tragedy and sickness, but amazing healing too, and amazing discoveries and spaceships sent out around the moon and back. She dreamed of all of these things, and she smiled, and she liked the dream, so she kept dreaming. And while she was at it, she began to dream the dreams of all the others. She began to dream like it was Possum, carrying a wormy tail around a branch looking down into the night sky, and she dreamt that she was Eagle, riding all of those thermals, looking down at the ground with razor-sharp vision, and she dreamt of the dignified claws of a lizard holding on to those warm rocks and smelling the air with its tongue, and she dreamt of that weight holding in quietness down below the surface of the water as whale. And she dreamt of those waves crashing on the shore and laying eggs with her flippers covering them up with the sand. She dreamt the dreamings of all the other creatures. And she liked the dreaming, so she kept dreaming. And during all of these moments, it was like the first soccer match ever witnessed by the spirit of dreaming, because that was not a small thing, to hand the spirit of dreaming, the secret of it, to another creature. It's a very valuable thing, the ability to close your eyes, imagine something, and then bring it into being with your hands and your heart and your care. Other creatures do it in the small ways that they do. Wonderful, important, but there's something different that humans do. So there was the spirit of dreaming. I think she's got it. I think they've got it. Oh, they've got it. So then, the spirit of dreaming stood up, arched its great back, breathed in and out a smile of contentment, and fell down into this world. Always present, always witnessing, but leaving it up to us to do our work. As it's understood from this story, that's the Aboriginal teaching, that if there is a God, it's not one you pray to do other things for you. It's your job, because we were the ones left with the dreaming to do. And because this woman and all of her children and all of her family could dream the dreams of the others, they passed it down for thousands of years, that the beings you can dream for and dream in common with, you need to take care of. And so a stewardship was started, where we all belong to this place. The dreaming belongs to all of us, and it's ours to care for. And if you are able to follow along this journey, then the miracle that's in you is no different than those first people who stood up and formed their lives around the miracle of being able to do this.